HSBC Global Change Delivery System itself. He has been into the BPO and IT type of thing for quite long. He was in ANZ earlier, who was managing the whole banking process, sitting in Bangalore and delivering the loans to the customer in Australia and New Zealand. Now he is doing great work in HSBC in transforming HSBC processes, and his team is not allowed to work for the process which belongs to only one country. That is the constraint. He has to work only on processes which works in many countries. So that's a challenge that sitting here in Bangalore, he has to transform processes which runs parallelly to many countries, and he will throw light on some of these issues. And he will also make an important announcement to you.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So first few logistics, everyone can hear me? Yes. Yeah, which means also you are awake. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dubey. So the announcement is that, of course, that we ran a survey about half an hour back that how many of you are willing to forego lunch. And pleased to inform that 95% said yes, you don't want lunch, right? Was this in this room or some other room? Could be some other room. So maybe we'll give you lunch, but with a little delay, right? So I will stand between you and lunch. If you behave, you'll get good lunch. Otherwise, we'll keep talking for another half an hour. I actually not make the decision to only ask questions, that would be better, but you need some context to ask questions, so I'll kind of share that context. So Mr. Dubey introduced us as my team as, you know, being having a constraint of working across the globe, sitting in Bangalore, Hyderabad. I actually see it as an opportunity or a blessing, because how else would you, in the same calendar year, visit Geneva, Switzerland, Melbourne, Brazil, parts of UK which are better looking. Not all of UK is very good, but how else would you do that? You know, and your company pays for all that. So it's a blessing in disguise. We actually look forward to these projects which we do. On a more serious note, what we actually do is that we take up global projects. So HSBC, as you know, is a global organization. So there is no one process which only sits in a particular country. The same process sits across countries. And there is no point in improving a process only for India, only for a particular country. It makes sense to improve it across the globe. So that's what we do. So I'm no expert in the topic that I'm going to share or speak about, which I'm sure many of our earlier speakers would also say. This is a journey that we have. You know, I've learned from other people, and I'm willing to share what I have learned. And in the process, if you pick up something and are able to implement, we'll be very happy. Okay. Now, financial services is often, you know, the target of most of media, most governments, most regulators. Every regulator loves the financial world. You know, in most countries, the most hated people are the regulators in these countries, and not so much in India, but across the world, it is very difficult. But why is that? There is an opportunity. There is a huge opportunity in the financial services world, particularly banking. Almost half of the world is still unbanked. Now we talk about, of course, more important things like water, shelter, safety, security. But as part of that, security is also the financial inclusion across the world. It is very surprising today that more than half is still unbanked. Right? And a recent study has shown that if these banks, most of these banks, and this is particular for banks and in general for financial services, if we can improve our operational efficiency or cost base by even 2 to 5%, right, we could reach out to another 20-30% of the unbanked without any investment. Right. So and that's extremely important. I know most of you are from manufacturing and may not be, you know, extremely glued to what I'm saying, but please understand most manufacturing companies also need some capital. So banks are an interesting party to you, and how your bank works should be of interest to you particularly. And we've seen that, you know, some very strong customers can actually push for a lot of improvement. So most of our improvement ideas come from customers. Customers not happy with something and they can push us. And I will share some examples, not necessarily from the current employer, but in general from the industry. So as I said, just a little bit of a 2 to 5% reduction can give you enough capital to reach out. So that's the higher ground, I would say, for banks or financial services to actually do this. Right? Otherwise, why do something like this? We are sitting pretty. Actually, because of the stress that the financial system has been in the last few years, no bank actually may not want to, and banks don't want to do anything, because the moment you step forward, 50% chances that foot forward is wrong. Some regulator somewhere will find some kind of fault with that. So you are not very keen to do something innovative, to reach out, to go forward, because there are just too many people watching you, particularly for large financial services organizations or banks. Many of them, of course, are not around, so only few are that large now. So that leads us to some point that I made. Banks have been in stress, not just banks but also financial services institutions in general. Many of them, as I said, many of the names that you see on this list, and this is not a very old list, this is only over the last 2 to 4 years, are not even there. Right. So you would probably be surprised to know that there have been fines or settlements with regulators of over $10 billion in some cases. $10 billion is revenue that some companies take 20 years to reach, and really good companies to reach. And banks and some financial institutions have had to settle for $10 billion of fine or settlements in a single year, which means many of these places will not exist next year, or will find it extremely difficult to survive, or they'll probably need other banks to help them survive, which is even more riskier, because you are helping somebody who has not met the regulators' requirements, and therefore you are part of a vicious cycle. So I will not, of course, read out these names. Some of them are competition to us, and it may not look very polite for us to mention them. Our name is also there, so just to be fair, and our name is, of course, in many other lists as well these days. Not so good ones, but not by our choice. Okay, so I think the reason I wanted to present these two slides was to take home the point that if you work with a bank, not in the bank, I mean all of us work with a bank, all of us have an insurance policy, should have at least an insurance policy. Definitely, if you have a motor vehicle, in India you have to have an insurance policy. If you are alive, if you are a human being, it's not mandatory to have a policy, but if you are a dead motorbike, it is mandatory to have a policy. And bank account, of course, with the new initiative, bank account almost everybody will have. So our view has been, or my view has been in the service industry, that unless you make some noise, things don't change. So if you are not getting your home loan as promised in 10 days, just don't sit back, make some noise. If not our bank, some other bank will listen. Right. So, and in general, people keep shouting. Somebody does listen. So that's the point what I wanted to make through this, is that it's only that 2 to 5% improvement that is needed across the world in financial system to go and bank, or make about 25%, 30% of the unbanked population banked. And it's a large responsibility that the human race today has. It's not about money, it's not about profit alone. So many people are unbanked, and they are cut off from the mainstream mainly because they don't have a mobile phone, they don't have a bank account. Right? So it's a larger thing than just making some money. So just quick summary of what I'm trying to say. Of course, since the GFC, for those of you who are uninitiated, is global financial crisis. Banks and financial institutions have permanently changed. Nobody functions the way they used to function before that. And there are places which don't exist, large iconic places which don't exist, and there are others which are completely different. Gone are the days for investment bankers where they don't have the time to count their salary. Those days are really gone. It's very tough now. Smaller banks in developing countries or smaller countries, let's say, or regions, are better placed today. So you will find most of the current banks, and not that they are using lean, but they have become lean by the circumstances that prevailed. But some have chosen to, and I can share as I go along. Some have chosen to become lean through choice. And they are better poised because their exposure is lesser. Unfortunately, this is a risk and regulation issue, not a customer and market issue. Because if you are in a smaller space, your risk and regulation is lesser, and therefore your costs of operations are much, much lesser. The moment you become a global financial institution or a global bank, you have those costs because you have to study regulation in so many other countries. It's absolutely maniac. You can't do that, and you will end up making some mistake somewhere. Hopefully not in the US, because that's where all the fines come from. Just a quick one, banks are collaborating a lot more these days. I know this is not related so much to lean, but we did speak about customers and competitors coming together. That's happening in banking. Actually, banking is by design very collaborative. All of corporate banking is collaboration. One bank deals with the other bank. So we don't realize, we see only the retail part of the banking. But most of banking is actually corporate banking or institutional banking or trade or those kind of things, where two banks work with each other. So this part is quite good, and it is even becoming better. The last point, of course, is around that US dollar still dominates, but US banks don't dominate, which is good news actually, because no one country dominating any sector should be good. This was not the case 5 years ago, but many of those banks don't exist now. So good for all of us, which means rates could be a little better as we go along. Okay, moving on to why. The discussion is why should we do this. So the why is that we don't have to do this because we can save $1 billion here and there. Yes, we can, but the bigger why is that if we save that, we can invest it in Africa, we can invest it in parts of India, rest of Asia, where large populations are unbanked. So that's a bigger rationale that drives many larger organizations today. And of course, there is a commercial motive in that, no denial, but that's a bigger point. And when we start looking at how, so these are two trends that I thought I'll share with you. These are trends over 10 years. Right? One of the trends is a Six Sigma trend, one is a lean and lean Six Sigma trend, combined ones. Right? So over a 10-year period, the Google search, people searching about these topics in Google shows that there is a dramatic reduction in the popularity of Six Sigma. This doesn't mean that Six Sigma is no longer good. It doesn't mean anything of that sort. I earn my living out of Six Sigma, so I don't want to say that. I just want to say that people searching for the term Six Sigma has reduced by over half over the last 10 years. And these are 10-year trends. During the same period, if you see, the other trend is for lean and lean Six Sigma. The trend is very different. It only indicates that this term is more popular, right? Which means more people are searching for it, which means there are chances that they actually are thinking of using it. Right? And you can extend the logic. It also means that some of them may actually end up using it as well. Right? So that's what I thought I'll share with you, that if we see, I come from a financial sector where the easiest thing to say is that this all doesn't apply to us. We don't need all this. 1% of 1% rate change in mortgage or home loans can wipe off all the lean Six Sigma and everything that you do for 5 years. Or a sales guy can come and say, or an operations guy come and say that 0.5% change in some personal loan rate is 10 times more than what you will ever dream of coming up with the number. So the challenges in our sector are extremely difficult or different, I would say. Most of them are same as others, but this one challenge is amazing challenge because anybody can come up and in a meeting and say that look, you can do all this for 5 years. I can change the rate by 10 basis points this quarter, and we are bigger than you. So that makes it even more difficult. But nevertheless, this shows that there is an interest, and obviously people are now more interested in Lean and Lean Six Sigma combined one. Okay, so there are some topics, and I think I was trying to use some animation for, and one, of course, I'm probably not very good at it. Two, I realized that many of you are taking pictures, and with this animation thing, you never know when the slide is over. So I've removed some of them for you. So this is all that is on the slide. So whatever time you want to take, I don't know if you want to take, but if you do, that's all there is on this slide. So now coming to the sector. So the BFSI, which is, of course, banking, financial services, insurance sector. What has been my experience? Now, this is not specific to the companies I've worked for. I've also been a consultant earlier, so I can speak from a large body of knowledge, not as large as some of the senseis sitting here, but still a substantial body of knowledge. And what we can say is that in this sector, most of the battle is managing the tail. Now, what's managing the tail? Somebody yesterday spoke about managing exceptions. If you notice, and how many times have you got a credit card with somebody else's name printed on it? Has someone got a credit card, somebody else's name? Please don't say for an HSBC card. But has someone got a credit card with somebody else's name printed on it? No, right? But it does happen, right? So which means the odds are really, 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 really low, right? Have you got somebody else's banking account statement, either by email or?
Kidding, but I can't open this. I don't know the password.
Yeah, thankfully some systems worked.
No, months on it, it's been coming, and I've been writing to them. Only now they have removed it. Otherwise, I used to get 2 people's statements in my email.
Good.
But at least I can open it.
I really would wish that I can go and cash it, actually. But yeah, so these things do happen, right? And I've seen credit cards being printed for somebody else, going to another person, which is of course a rarer thing. But all other things also do happen. So errors do happen. There are, I'm sure all of you have taken a home loan or insurance policy or any of that kind. We have 2 insurance stalwarts sitting here, where you have promised that within a week you will get this, package saying that your policy is signed up, or I'm not using technical term deliberately, but is all delivered, and you have a mortgage or home loan all 1 week. This time you will definitely say it never happens in a week. Right? Does it happen when it was promised? Usually not. Right? And the point I'm trying to make with manage the tail is that from the bank's point of view, from the financial services institution point of view, a large percentage, maybe 99.9% and plus, happens within the tolerance that they have designed. The last 0.01 consumes departments after departments. There are departments that exist in all kinds of financial services only to manage the 0.01. So the battle in financial services is not to achieve 99.99. That is usually done through technology. The moment you put up a technology system, it's already done. Unless of course somebody types in my name wrongly the first time around, which also happens quite a lot, there will still be checks, 2 or 3 checks. So the battle for us is a little different, that 99.99 or even more Six Sigma levels actually happens technology wise. It's that last 3-4 digit that creates a problem. And I have seen in my experience where, so let's say you got a card which was, which is not in your name but somebody else's name, right? Or your mortgage application, home loan application is delayed. What is your reaction? Assuming that you wanted the loan and you wanted the card, you will go back and say that, look, you've given somebody else's card to me. So obviously there will be the well-trained sorry and everything. And then behind the scene, behind the curtain, there is a flurry of activity because nobody knows how it happens. Of course, you will quickly be given another card. It will probably take 2-3 days and all. Another week, another same thing, and this can keep repeating. Somebody in Lean group or Lean Six Sigma group will pick up a project. And what we discovered is that when we did a similar project, what we discovered is that for each such complaint, it goes to really senior people. There, at least half the week is gone in treating this or in managing this complaint. If you combine all the costs lower down in managing that complaint, you could actually set up another division in that much cost. So the costs are humongous in managing that 0.0. Unlike manufacturing, where you could still say that it has still not left the plant, so I can still, there is still cost, obviously, but the cost that is there in the financial services sector is absolutely humongous because of the trickle-down effect from the senior management to the operators. And people, there is a amazing set of drama which unfolds when these complaints come in. So manage the tail is the key for me. If you are from the financial services sector, or if you run a process which is similar to financial services in many ways, please try and focus only on the tail. Don't waste your time on or don't be very happy with the 99.99 because the cost incurred, because the system is not designed. If you look at systems thinking, the system is not designed to manage that 0.01. System is designed to manage the 99.99, which it is delivering. And when that 0.01 happens, we don't know how to manage it. So we are pretty focused on this. Most of our projects are around these kind of things. Speed and accuracy. So I spoke about mortgage application, home loan application. In many countries, not so much in India, but in many countries, an applicant can apply for a home loan to 2, 3, 4 banks, as many banks as they want, right? Which basically means I want a home loan or a mortgage. I can actually go to a broker who will for me apply to 4 banks, and he'll broker the deal for me, of course at a small commission. Or I can do the same. I can walk to 4 branches and submit applications. Why am I doing this? Window shopping, right? So you are checking whether who gives the best rate for us, right? So that's what you are doing. And in this case, what we discovered over a period of time, over about 6 months of some small research that I did, is that it's not the rate that matters in this case. It is the speed of response. So if the response came from a certain bank faster than you thought it will come, you are more inclined to pick up that home loan, even though you know that the next one coming is 0.25% or 0.15 or 0.1% lesser. This thing that happens to us as well, but you may not realize this example because in India the tradition is to, or the ritual kind of thing is to apply to one place, right? And then when you are rejected, then you go to the other place. And some banks also charge fee for that. So for application itself, so it is very difficult to keep paying fees to each place that you apply for. All I'm trying to say is that accuracy is important. That was for Six Sigma, but speed is even more important now, and that is what I shared with you one project where in the mortgage thing we discovered that the speed of response is actually more important than the rate, which was a surprise to most well-hardened bankers, that the rate is no longer important. I mean, no longer is not probably right, but only marginally less important. This one is interesting. Focus on idle time. This is very similar to what all of us as lean practitioners would believe. Now, I have done a lot of projects in the financial services sector along with my team. The one big lesson, if everything comes down to one big lesson, is that please don't change the process. Look at the time between 2 processes. Right? The great temptation is to go and change the process. Right? And Deming also said that don't tinker with a stable process. But in our sector, at least services and particularly financial services, we love to change the process. And it's a stable process. It is delivering 99.73 plus. Why do you want to change the process when there is large idle time? I'll give you an example. Travel cards. So one of the projects I was involved with was for a travel card issuance. So what is a travel card? It is a prepaid debit card which you pay up for, or it is connected to your bank account. Usually you pay up for in multiple currencies. Sometimes if you are traveling to different countries, but usually in one currency wherever you are traveling. As simple as that. So what do? You actually before 2-3 days of your travel, so you are traveling on 1st, on 25th or something, you will go and buy a travel card, and you are now hoping, praying that it will be active when you need it, right? And you can't actually check it here because it doesn't work in your country of origin. It works in the country of destination, right? So a travel card doesn't work. It's not a debit card that you can use here, so you can't check it. So you have to land, if you are flying to UK, you have to land in UK, then shove it in an ATM and check whether it is working. So you are wasting your time hoping and praying. In many cases what we realize, it doesn't work by the time you land. Of course, lots of complaints. So what we did is that we went back and saw that, okay, the difficulty is that the system or the process design is for 24 hours, which means by the time the application hits the queue, our process is designed to deliver it in 24 hours. So it doesn't happen in 24 hours in some cases, it takes 48 hours. By the time you have reached the destination and you are in vain trying to use it in the ATM machine, and it doesn't work. And in these kind of services, we can't even go back to the customer and say, sir, 99.99% it works, only in your case it didn't work, that's not something that will work. And so what we did is that we did a project around why do we need 24 hours? Right? So going back to something that was asked yesterday, is to asking why and getting into the root of the problem. The easier thing was that we can say that we will only sell debit cards, which some banks by the way did. You show your travel ticket, if it is 2 days, minimum 2 days away, we will give you a travel card, otherwise we are not giving you a travel card. That was the easiest thing to do. But what we did was that we said, okay, why do we need 24 hours? And we went back to the process. We realized there were 4 parts to the process, all taking about 4 minutes each. Right. So that is 16 minutes. A 16-minute process takes 24 hours. Right. So obviously there are, with due respect to Capgemini, there will be some technology company which would have designed this, that okay, you do all this in one go, then it waits for the other person, and by which time the other person is doing actually yesterday's work, which was started. So we since I had a manufacturing background, we said that okay, why can't this be a cell? Right. And we saw Dr. Ravi's presentation where cell works very simply that there is a continuous flow. So of course there is a lot of resistance, and people just wanted to kill me. And you are from manufacturing, although I am actually not, but the branding was that you are from manufacturing, you don't know this world, this cannot work here, nothing can happen. We can at best think of 22 hours. Right. So I said, how will you do 24 hours to 22 hours? We'll find a way. If you can find a way for that, you can may as well find a way for this, right? And I am giving you the way. So after a lot of fighting, we were able to find some willing people who said, okay, I'll give you 2 small cells, right? But only for 3-4 days, no more. I said, fine, I just need it for 1 day. We of course set up the experiment, and the pilot was very successful because we placed them all across a single bench of desks, even though it was not required. As in this technology age, the first operator can be in Bangalore, the second can be in Hyderabad, third can be in Manila, fourth can be in Kuala Lumpur. It doesn't matter. But we still, to demonstrate, because nothing is actually going from this computer to this computer. It is actually going to a data center and then moving around. Right? But we still, just to kind of display or demonstrate the experiment, we did that. And application after application was getting out in 18 minutes, 20 minutes, 21 minutes, 16 minutes, 15 minutes. for the whole day. And now that process is completely done. We've of course gone back to customer and say that, we will give you, and I can't name the company, we will give you a card which will work by the time you land. So even if you buy it at the airport, by the time you land, it will start working. It will be working. So it's a huge success for this particular bank, because they finally asked the question that why does it take 24 hours, and also did not think too much about the so-called manufacturing practice of lean or of a cell cannot be applied to financial services. It can be applied to financial services. So now that bank actually, including the sales time, which I didn't count in this, delivers in 2 hours. And most of the performance is 2 hours is the target. Most of the performance is within 1 hour, including peak times. So 1 hour actually allows us to manage the peak times, because we don't have to hire for peak times. I can do the process in 15 minutes, but I have 1 hour to do. So I don't need to hire for peak time. I mean, hire in the sense I don't have to staff the operation for that time. I still save. And this operation still is doing rolling business, but not one person has been added to this thing. Okay. So don't always tinker with the process. In this process, in this change, all the 4 components of the process, we did not change a thing, nothing. Not a microsecond saved on the process. The entire thing was between this process and that process, there is this huge idle time. Let's focus on this. I can say with assurance, or some experience that I have, if you go back to your own, whether it is manufacturing or service, in all your lean projects, if you can start looking for the idle time reduction, if you can carry one thing from this presentation, it is that idle time reduction. Don't just start tinkering with the process. Processes are fine most of the time. They are delivering. Just don't start. The first thing to do is to change this around. It's glamorous because usually it will take technology or a new machine or some training program or some visit to UK or something. Some advantage will be there, but you can solve most problems by just tackling the idle time. Okay. The last point on this slide, another lesson that I have learned is that it happens very often that we go to management and management doesn't listen to us. I'm talking to the practitioners and not the senior management here, but management says that these ideas are not, they won't work. You are asking for too much investment, you are asking for 6 months of time, my problem is now, doesn't work. What I have realized is that if we break down our solutions into no tech, low tech and high tech, generally we go only with the high tech ones, which is we'll have a data center in Kuala Lumpur, we'll have a web portal, we'll have tablets given to all the sales people. All that is investment. There is no money for, and banks are bleeding money paying to regulators. There is no money to pay for these tablets and data centers and fancy applications. No money. But if you go with a low tech or a no tech solution, my favorites are no tech solutions. Don't go with no tech solution, don't go with a high tech solution straight away. If you go with no tech solutions, chances are most people do it. And this applies to all service sectors. I would say it doesn't apply to just manufacturing or just for banking or financial services. It applies to any service sector. Think of no tech solutions. That gives top management some credibility, or it gives you some credibility to ask for a low tech solution later on. Right. Most of us in the lean and quality field are today finding it tough because the technology has taken over the many of the work, many of the kind of projects that we used to do. And I interview a lot of people, and most of them complain that whatever solution I gave, it was never implemented. So whose fault it is? You went with a solution which could not be implemented with the money that was in hand. So why not try some no tech ones? Like the ones I explained to you earlier, the travel card one is a no tech solution. There is no change in the way the system talks to the other system, just no change. It is just that we change the organizational structure. There is a similar one in a project where we did is, again I can't name the company, insurance project, where we discovered that there are more than 50% of applications, insurance applications, get delayed inordinately delayed, not just normal delayed, not just 1 or 2 days, 20 days, 30 days, 1 month, 2 months. And why is it happening? Because 50% of the time there is a follow-up, which means you have filled up the application, given it to the sales manager, and the sales manager has submitted it, but there is follow-up in all these cases. And what we realize is that a large chunk, more than half of this follow-up, is about payment. So payment advice. So when you sign up, you authorize the bank, okay, you can deduct the payment for this from my credit card or from my bank account, right? And you give an advice. Sometimes you pay and give this advice. That advice is a separate sheet of paper which gets lost in the process, right? Because it's a separate sheet of paper, it tags along with, it goes into a bin, all of that is collected by obviously unskilled labor, it is shoved into sacks, gunny bags, it is taken to a scanning center by God knows what means. The whole process is extremely manual. So it's not as glamorous as you see when you open an account or buy a policy. It's very unglamorous. And in that process, a loose sheet of paper getting lost is no big deal, you know. But in this case it is, because that has the payment advice. And the person completing the application is following up, chasing for, sir, you have applied for the policy, but you have not paid. What do you mean I have not paid? I have paid. Here is, this is the date and everything, but that invoice or that advice copy is not there. So what did we do? So the high-tech solution was that when the person pays, you scan it, you make an application portal where you shove the scanned copy along with the application, it goes into the system and sits in the system. The no-tech solution was, don't collect payment in upfront. Why do you need payment upfront? You already have the advice, collect payment at the end. You will not lose the payment advice at all. So many examples of no-tech that I can share, but let's move on because you have lunch also waiting. One case study I just wanted to share with you, and then maybe we'll summarize quickly. Now, this is about Progressive Insurance, very popular US-based insurance organization. And this is slightly dated, but all the lessons apply. And this is from a book, Faster, Better, Smarter, one of the best books I have read on the topic by Michael Hammer. So if you want to get involved a little bit more examples on this, Faster, Better, Smarter is a fantastic book by Michael Hammer. Michael Hammer, of course, is no more, but his work still stays. So this is a small company. They only were doing some 1.3 billion or whatever. Their target was much higher, and they were finding it extremely difficult. So if a company wants to grow, what does it do? I want some answers. Insurance company or any other company wants to grow, what do they do? Come again? Capture market, how? So new products, buy another company, acquisition, go to another geography, right? All this needs investment, money, right? So high growth. So this company also considered all this: high growth industry, diversification, global expansion, acquisition, advertising, but they didn't have the money to do all this. Cars hit, my car, your car got hit. What happens? We file a report. It goes to an insurance company which has a checklist. They will check it up. They will, of course, do batch processing because you are not very important. There have to be more customers. So there will be some batch processing. By this time, it has at least 2 to 3 days go in this process. And then, of course, the companies used to send a officer to meet you. By which time, by the way, either you started using your car or you've given it to garage and you are using a replacement car. So the car is not in the same shape by this time. So evidence is already gone. So I don't know what this officer is going to check, other than whether you look like a crook or you are a normal kind of guy. This is just a farce. And it has been going on for years. And then, of course, this person files a report which, depending on how much you bribe him or agree to bribe him, it will be designed. And then, you are still wondering what happened to your claim. And this process used to take anywhere between 7 days to 10 days or more, which is too big, too large for a simple insurance process. Right? Even now it takes that much time, by the way. So it's become much faster, but that's in cases where you have a Maruti, maybe it is pretty fast because they have a very good tie-up with certain insurance companies, but not all. Right? So, and this is US, which where financial services are a little better than most. So what does this company do? So what are the disadvantages in this earlier system above? One, of course, it takes too long. There is batch processing, which not necessarily is a bad thing, but in this case seems like it is a bad thing. The company still doesn't know whether they are paying for something genuine or not genuine. They're just going with the trust that they have on the officer that files the report. And there are just too many roles. If you see, there are just too many roles. 4 or 5 people, roles. Why? Right? So what did they do? They said, okay, we anyway have to improve, so we will do something else. So they set up a call center. So you hit your car, my car, your car, we hit each other. After the pleasantries are exchanged, we decide to call up. Right? So depending on who is insured with Progressive Insurance, we call up. This operator dials up a set of mobile vans which are there in the city. Right? So they are always out in the city. For a city like Bangalore, 4, 5, 6 vans are always out in the city. They dial the van, they actually connect you to the, so if I have insurance, they'll connect me to this person in the van, we will discuss the location, here is the accident which has happened, they will drive down to the location. This happens within half an hour to 1 hour of your actual accident. Right? What have you removed? You removed the filing that I do, the batch processing that was happening, and many other roles probably in between. Right? This meeting happens right then and there, right? And I get my claim if I am entitled to. This is an actual case of Progressive Insurance in the US. Since it is a published case, I took the liberty to share with you, and I have given you the source. It should be good for you. And there are many, many benefits. Of course, it doesn't take any brains now to assess what kind of benefit. This company rose from 1.3 billion to 9 billion only out of this change. Nothing else. Many companies tried to copy, follow. They were not able to do because, of course, just like everybody tries to follow Toyota, but it's not that easy because you need a certain culture to do that. I won't go there because other speakers have spoken about that. So that's where we are. So with this example, I thought I'll try and, okay, one quick one, which is probably the last slide for me. There are some suggestions as well that I thought I can share with you. One is around the, look for end-to-end projects. Don't look for small light bulb changing kind of projects because these are the true. What is this cancer cell analogy? So your departments are aligned like this, your processes are actually aligned like this. Most of the projects, the easiest place to find a project is in the intersections. Where stores department has to deal with the purchase department, purchase has to deal with the inventory and other departments. Just don't look anywhere, just look at the intersections of these departments. Any department that you are from, you will find projects, at least in your lifetime, they will not finish off. So it's an easy one. Many speakers have spoken about Gemba, so I will not go into this. I had some examples, but I think in interest of time we'll skip that. This one I want to speak about. This is another lean term is aware, but I've set up war rooms in companies where I have consulted with. The single rule in this room is that there is no PowerPoint presentation, there is no email, there is no reporting that is to be done. Everything is on a single chart on the board. Every project has a single chart paper which has post-its on it, and the post-its are by role. So the role, if the role is the project member role, project leader role, sponsor role, everybody comes to that half-an-hour meeting per week and just plays with the post-its. So this was your type. And post-its are colored, so different colors mean different things, which means if it's an action, it is yellow, if it is a delay, it is a purple, and so on. Right? If I had more time, I could share some examples more with this, but this is a classic way. Please cut out PowerPoints, emails around, and status reports around your projects. They only delay the project. Nothing ever happened out of PowerPoints, they, apart from this, of course, you know, it gives us an ego boost that we've used a PowerPoint, and you see how good we are. We don't even know how to use the animation bit, so it's of no use actually. So start using simple pen, paper, chart paper. Some of the variants I have used are, you know, smaller than maybe 8 by 8, and all the walls are covered with that. One wall is a whiteboard. You do your discussion on the whiteboard and leave the room. That's all. Everybody knows what is to be done. There is no need for a minister meeting. There is no need for anything at all. If the person comes next week and say, "Oh, I didn't understand," there are 10 people looking at him. "Oh, really? You didn't understand? You know, we all did." So there is some problem, bigger problem here. Last one, if we had our say, most lean practitioners, quality practitioners would take months to do a project, 6 months, 10 months, because we are purists. We want to do a good job. Nobody else is interested in that good job, by the way, because by the time you finish your job may not be around. Why? Because the context for the work that you are doing has changed. The world has changed. So you took 9 months to deliver the improvement line of thinking. And managing projects through PMP people. So on many of my projects, I have PMPs who manage the project and make sure that it delivers. But the so-called quality and lean purists can continue doing, you know, fancy things. At one point in that week, they have to deliver. They can't anymore delay it. Right? So that's a lesson that I have learned. So I guess that's probably all. I won't go into summary. My presentation itself has been more like a summary. So that's about it. Some key lessons that I thought I'll share with you. One of my favorite ones, of course, is if one lesson you want to take back, please focus on the idle time between processes. Just don't go and damage processes. You know, every time you touch a process, it's gone. You know, it's working. Please don't tamper unless you really, really need to. So with that, lunch.
Thanks. Maybe one question.
So there were 5 people. I paid 500 rupees each for a question.
So that you can ask outside while taking lunch, right? Okay. I invite Mr. Mehta to hand over memento to Anshuman for his beautiful presentation. Okay, friends, what time do we come back? So 2:15, please. Thank you, sir. Let's get back at 2:15. We are running slightly late. Inside the hall, we are going to start the keynote session by Mr. Joseph Hero, and I don't want that keynote session to be missed out by anybody. Request all to come fast.
The organization of the event made me speak twice after lunchtime. So I don't know what I did wrong. Well, I don't know why you're punishing me or punishing you or punishing both of us. But I'm supposed to be, maybe I'm supposed to entertain you. Since I'm from Brazil, what should I do to entertain you? Samba? Samba? I'm not very good at this. Samba? What else? Football? Well, after losing to Germany 7-1, maybe we better change the subject. Change the subject. So, Samba not very good, football not very good at also. So let's go back to our discussion here. Maybe that would be a good idea to wake up people. How was the morning for you? Very good. Why was very good? Learned a lot. Many cases. So what kind of companies we saw presenting today, this morning? Manufacturing. What the manufacturing company we saw? What kind of products? Auto parts. Auto parts. So a company in the automobile sector is very important in India. Chemical, also very important as far as I understand. An important industry in India. Construction, which I think also an interesting, important financial. So we have four, lean in auto parts. This is something not common, not usual. So that's a sign that, and also our friend from HSBC presented some data saying interest for lean in the financial sector is going up. And interesting for lean is in the construction is going up also. Where is Ravi? Anybody else from construction? Interest in lean construction is going up?
Very slowly.
Very slowly. In Brazil also very slowly. In some other countries. It's going, but slowly, yes. But at the same time, we have healthcare, like John presented, going very fast. So in general, we have, in many countries, a movement towards lean being spread to many different types of sectors. And this morning you talked about small and medium-sized company. It's going slowly, but it's going. So we see a movement towards applying lean in many sectors, in many types of activities, in many countries. We have people here from Sri Lanka. Anybody from Sri Lanka? We have people from Dubai here, from Dubai. Any other country here? Finland. The cold country. Okay, good. So we see this is spreading in every sector, in every country, in every type of economic activity, in every size of business. So we see this is exciting, I think. For me, this is very exciting. But like John said in the beginning of his presentation, lean thinking is about being worried all the time. Being worried. Like John said, no problem is a big problem. So we should feel happy about it. Well, lean is going everywhere and we seem to like it. We seem to think that this is a good idea for the companies, is a good idea for the country. So we should be happy about it. But at the same time, we should be concerned about it. Like John said, lean thinking is about no problem is a big problem. So we have a problem here. It is spreading everywhere. It's going to construction, financial services, healthcare, chemical, medium size, every country. But then what's the problem with this? What's the problem? And I think the topic of this conference is basically one of the problems that we have is Sustainability. This is the topic of this conference. How we can make this sustainable. It's very easy to get excited about it like we are today, this afternoon, after hearing so many interesting presentations about all kinds of sectors, all kinds of activities. So we have reasons to be excited. But at the same time, we have some reasons to be concerned about, because we want to make sure that this excitement doesn't go away. We want to make sure that this excitement is sustainable over time. And this is what this conference is about. We want to have a sustained lean transformation. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about that. I will bring some of my personal experience on this if there is any help. And in particular, I'm going to bring a little bit more discussion about culture and management as essential elements of a successful and sustainable lean transformation. I think after the examples today, if you didn't have already your own example from your own company, what you saw today and yesterday is lean brings business results. We've seen, many presentations showing improvements in the manufacturing, in the product development, in the services, in the administrative areas, bringing higher profitability, bringing growth to the company. So and people learning and the company improving all the time. So this is great. This is what lean brings, and that's what happens most of the times. But often, somebody asked in the beginning, in the initial questions for John, do we have success or failure? Do we have examples of failures? We have a lot of examples of successful transformation? Do we have examples of failures? To be honest with you, I thought about it, and I tried to remember based on my experience and the experience of the Brazilian Institute that we created 16 years ago. So looking back in our 16 years of experience, and we work with hundreds of companies. And of course, we went through a learning process ourselves. We changed our methods, and we improved the way we work with the companies. I really don't remember. I'm honest. I think lean principle number 0 is never lie. Always tell the truth to the people and to yourself. So I'm not lying. I don't remember. It might happen. I just don't remember. Maybe I'm one of those persons that everybody experiences in life you try to erase, so you tend to forget something bad happened, and you try to remember all the good things that happened. Maybe I'm doing this. But what I've seen year after year, company after company, using our methods that, as I told you, we improved over time, we usually have this. Initial transformation, and over time, you have a great, significant performance improvement. Significant. In whatever focus we have. If you're doing manufacturing, if you're doing one product family, if you start from door to door, you get significant improvement. I really don't remember hundreds of cases. I don't remember seeing any case that we didn't have this situation. However, sometimes we have this very clearly, the situation that the company begins to understand that this is a great opportunity. We have an opportunity, and this happens often. You can double the production volume with the same resources. So after a few months or a couple of years of implementation, the companies begin to realize, well, I can double my volume if I need, or I can maintain the volume that I have with half of the resources. So this is the kind of impact you have in the initial stage of a lean transformation. So companies realize they are sitting in a pile of gold that they didn't know. They didn't know the machines could work much better. They didn't know that their inventory could be reduced much. They didn't know that their productivity could be much higher. They didn't know about this, and now they learn about this, and now they are doing it, and now this is the kind of resources they have. So this happens often. But the problem is, and in my institute, in our beginning, we wanted to work with as many companies as possible. We said we want to work with the whole country. We want to help transform the whole country. So when we were small, we were still very small. So we thought maybe we can fix a company in 1 year and then leave and go to another company because we want to work with as many companies as we thought. We made a big mistake because that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. You have this, but often what you have is something like this. If you are lucky, you can maintain what you have. But quite often, you have this kind of situation. Why this happen? What's going on? What is the problem here? What are the possible problems here? My learning now is basically the way we implemented it, the way we did it, how we work with the companies in order to make this happen. Initial success, extremely good success, but we were not able to sustain. Part of the reasons is, we all love the lean tools. They are great. We've seen many examples of them here. We learn, every time we learn a new one. They are great. They really help companies improve their processes. They really help, if properly seen, develop people capabilities. So we believe that this is enough. And that's not the case. If we really want to have sustainability, we need to go beyond the tools. We really have to focus on the leadership style and the new way of thinking. It doesn't just happen automatically, as we thought in our naive way of thinking when we started 15, 16 years ago. If we don't understand this, we can never achieve a successful transformation that sustains over time. So change in leadership, focus on leadership, management, and culture should be considered up front. If we don't start our lean transformation considering those elements, we have a high probability of failing. We could be successful, but that's going to be kind of a luck. The specific conditions of specific companies. In general, it's going to be very hard. In our experience over the years, what has been happening in this transformation? Many things came to my mind when I asked myself this question. First of all, in the beginning, we thought that I'm separating. This is a big company, but it could be a medium-sized company or even a small company. I'm doing a little bit like John did. We didn't work before this. I'm separating senior management, CEO level, middle management, supervision, and direct workers. Kind of a simplification of an organization. Different levels of authority or different levels of responsibility, either way. So what happened in our store, what happens when we started the lean transformation process and we had this kind of improvement that I mentioned to you? Over a period of time, great improvement. Sometimes, most times, the CEOs were not involved. Senior management was not involved. In the beginning of our work, we had somebody calling from a middle management perspective. An industrial manager, a site manager, our operations director would call us up and say, well, I want to do lean. That was a typical request for us because I think, I heard or I think it seems like a good idea. So I agree with you if you say senior leadership involvement, engagement is essential. People from MAS here, how is the engagement of your CEO in your transformation? Can you speak a little louder? He initiated. He believed it. And what is his attitude? Can you hear them?
They're getting the mic. They're getting
Get the mic, get the mic. I'm just picking up one example because I just happened to meet them yesterday.
Hello everyone. We are from MAS Holdings, Sri Lanka. We started our lean journey in 2005. So our chairman, Deshamani Mahesh Ambalian, the one who initiated it himself, he selected a pilot plant in 2005. We actually had a chat, Jose, about that. And he used to visit the pilot plant every 3 weeks and sit with the actual team who is implementing that. And he drive it from the front. So that's the, Roshani, would you like to add anything?
And also he wanted to believe his leadership. So what he has done is he wanted to go and see the first-hand experience in Toyota. So he arranged several visits, and he doesn't want to force people, but he wants people to believe that. See them firsthand, and then below that and implement, so that he will be able to cascade it to the down level. So until today, he believes, and even the recession, he clearly stated that we were able to save the company because of how successful we are in lean.
So we have one company here, and we have a good representation of that company saying that we started with the CEO. That was the CEO decision to do it. Oftentimes, it wasn't our experience. And I'm excited with this. I think this is going to work. Eventually, this is going to work because it started from the top. But, and then over time, in our projects, we started to try to bring the CEO on board as early as possible. And we have been very successful with this. Right now, every project we start in our institute, we have the CEO engaged. Either he's going to be involved in direct activities, and he's going to have some kind of a coaching activities. So we thought that this was fundamental. Without this, we couldn't make a lot of progress. Without this, we couldn't have a sustained lean transformation. That's okay. However, for example, I can give you one very simple example. I'm working with a company right now for the last year. And this guy who became the CEO called us up and said, well, I heard about lean. I heard some experiences. I heard it seems like it's getting very good results. And I know your institute does a good job with some companies that I know. We would like to do the same. Okay, I'm going to become the CEO in a few months, and I want to change this whole company in 1 year. And I said, okay, why do you want to change the company? Well, because I'm not very happy with the company. What are your results? Our EBITDA is 22%. And I said, well, this is very good. Not many companies can achieve. Yeah, but I want to change the whole company. I said, okay, whole company, okay, that's fine, that's fine. And I want to do it in 6 months. And I said, well, good, good. We like ambitious people. We love to work with ambitious people. But from our experience, it's very hard. What do we have to do in order to make it faster? And I said, well, we learned that CEO engagement is fundamental. What do you want me to do? Tell me and I'll do it. Well, you have to understand what's going on. You have to take the training session. Oh, I'll go to every training session. You have to go to the Gemba. I'll go to the Gemba. How much time do you want me to spend in the Gemba? Very anxious person. And then I told him, well, there's a slogan in the lean movement saying that go slow to go fast. And I said, I don't believe this. I believe in going fast. And I said, well, then we start to discuss this. And then there was a book by a psychologist and economist, I don't know the name of it, Going Fast to Go Slow or something like that. A very thick book by a guy that won the Nobel Prize about his research on how the brain works and all that. So I had no Portuguese translation of that book. So I said, I can give you a book, if you want to read it, to give the scientific foundation of what it means to go slow in order to go fast. And he said, great. And then he said, I sent him a book, and he bought 10 books and gave it to his senior people, and you have to read it for tomorrow. It's a very thick book. It's hard. It's like, very scientific, how brain works. It's not easy. It's not easy. So it's been a great experience for me. It's been a great experience. I'm trying to work with him. For example, we have a project manager working in that company. The work is doing he's very happy. He's extremely happy with the results. In some areas of the company, they went from 4 shifts to 2 shifts, or from 3 shifts to 1 shift. The volume didn't change. Production volume is a make-to-order, long lead time production. So there's no increase in the demand. Next year, they are able to do that. But basically, they were able to reduce the total amount of work pretty much by half now. And so he's happy with this. And we're trying to work with him. Our project manager just wrote me an email last week. I was away already, saying, I visited the company, this is the report, those are the data. They are delivering on time 100% of the time in the past 3 months. And this, all the indicators doing extremely well. But then I passed through this gentleman's office, and I looked at his desk, and he had a copy of Mao Zedong's The Red Book of, what's the name of that? Red Star Over China. And then I saw John's quote of Peter Drucker here, and he quoted Mao. And I said, well, how going to work with this guy? And then he's doing gamma walks. And people tell me, please ask him not to come. Please ask him not to come. He's destroying us. We're trying to do a lot of things, and he's destroying the work. Please tell him not to come. He's too involved. But he's wrongly involved. He is not supporting. He is not helping. He's actually. So this is a danger when we think about we need a strong leader. It can be a problem depending on the type of leadership. It's actually the kind of leadership we want to change. So we want to change that kind of leadership, and sometimes it's hard. For example, I find it very difficult to work with CEOs. Many CEOs think they know everything. So this is the most critical thing. If they know everything, nothing's going to happen. Because all we're trying to do is develop the learning capability of everybody in the organization. And he's blocking this. When he says, I know everything, you don't. You better study. I don't need to learn. So you're going to have a problem if the middle management begins to understand things in a different way, to improve things, to do things in a different way. We're going to have a problem. We're going to have a problem with this. So I face this kind of a behavior, very difficult. But do we want the CEO engaged? Of course we want. But we should want the CEO with the right attitude. And sometimes that's hard to do. Some of them are naturally lean, naturally helping people, naturally not telling what people to do, not authoritarian in the traditional way of authoritarian. But that's not the case in most of the companies that we've been working with. Most of the companies, they are strong. Although, John, it might not be politically correct in the US to be authoritarian, I see most of the senior people extremely authoritarian. Not the old authoritarian, I'm going to kick you, I'm going to beat you, but a nice authoritarian with a smile on, knowing every people by name, asking, how's your dog doing, or how's your kids doing, but actually having the implicit behavior we have within this kind of authoritarian pattern. So this is an issue. So sometimes it's good to have a good CEO with a good attitude on board. If that's not the case, sometimes it's good to have him waiting a little bit time until we get things going in the organization, and somehow we work with him in a different way so we can have we can have him on board. So we don't have to wait for the CEO to support the lean transformation. And if he or she is not supporting the way we want it to, eventually that's okay for some time. We will get there as we progress. Middle management is resisting change. This is common. Everybody talks about it. Middle management resisting change. And again, depending on how we do the transformation, that can happen. I remember one time one American organization was just bringing a program, a lean program they developed in the US. They came to us and say, we have those training modules, and we want to see which of those training modules you could provide, what you have experience doing that. And I looked at it, oh, I can do this, we can do this, we can do that. And there was one of the modules saying, managing change. And I said, what is managing change? Well, is managing the resistance that will come from the lean transformation. And what do you mean by that? So, you know, lean transformation, you're going to have resistance from the workers, from the managers, from the supervisors, from the senior leaders. So we have a module here to teach how to manage resistance to change. And I thought, well, I never thought about that. But then I thought it over, and I said, we are not going to teach this. For one reason, well, helping, teaching companies to manage resistance is like having a rework area at the end of your assembly line. It's rework. That means you're not doing a good job. If you are doing a good job with your transformation, you may have some what you call resistance, but this is part of the process, and you're going to deal with this as part of your transformation process. So you shouldn't make explicit to have, well, we're going to create a lot of resistance, and then we're going to work with this resistance afterwards. No, we shouldn't, if we do it properly, we're going to have less and less and less what we call resistance. Middle managers, if the implementation starts from the outside, from a lean coordinator or a change agent or improvement agent, then we have a problem. Because sometimes this agent is pushing tools. You have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do that. And those guys say, I don't know what to do. I mean, I have a lot to do, but why do I have to do on top of everything that I'm doing, like the Capgemini guys were talking about? So they resist because they don't see this as useful for them. And sometimes they don't understand what's going on. They don't understand the need of this. So they don't accept. So they are not aligned. So the transformation process is not capable of aligning the organization, focusing the organization on the priorities. If you do that, everybody's going to be on board. Because it's everybody's decision, it's everybody's focus, everybody has the same priorities, and has an agreement on how to achieve those targets and those goals and those where you want to be. Sometimes the middle managers don't have the knowledge, don't have the lean knowledge, because we all know, it's been repeated, is learning by doing. And sometimes they don't have the time, or they don't have the right, it's not being sold properly to them, how they're going to be learning this. I have a lot of engineers, I have those change agents, they have to do it. To change that mentality sometimes is hard, so they have to learn. And they have to be central in this process. They have to be central. They have to be engaged, involved, and leading this initiative. They shouldn't be participating or being informed on what's being done by other people. Because they have to become coaches in their organization. So that's a major change in their roles. But we see more and more, if you do it properly, if you engage them properly, they are not only not resisting, but actually leading this initiative, leading this organization. So maybe not only the CEO in the organization is leading this initiative, but I believe right now the middle managers are engaged, are involved, and helping him. And they are going, you're saying, yes, you're saying this. I'm just repeating to everybody. So you agree. Right now, probably most of the middle managers are on board and are actually actively supporting the CEO. So if we do it properly, we will bring middle management involved. Supervisors don't want to change. We hear often, well, they don't want to lose their power because they have power over the workers. Well, John talked about power. Power is everywhere. And again, they have new roles. They have new responsibilities. Sometimes it's hard for them to understand this. But they will be in the process. They will learn those new responsibilities, those new roles. And they need coaching from the middle management. So middle management has to help them in terms of understanding those new behaviors that they should have to make sure this is going to be sustainable over time. But in general, after some time, they are very supportive. They like this. And one of the reasons they like this is because direct workers love it. Because finally, we hear this experience after experience. We see direct workers saying, finally, after working in this company for 25 years, this is the first time the company started to look at me and my job. First time. They never pay attention to what's happening here in my workstation. They never pay attention to me. They would pay attention to me when the union challenged the company with a strike. Then they will be starting to talk with the workers. Let's do communication, never respected me. Never respected my intelligence. Never asked my opinion. Never asked my contribution. And now this is happening. This is great. This is great to hear. So this kind of a connection with the supervision actually creates a different type of environment. They know what to do. They are trained to do what they have to do. They know when there's a problem. They know what to do when there's a problem, and they get help when they need. So that changes dramatically their work environment, and they love it. I've seen unions very strong in many countries. And after some time, you see the union engaged. The union guys doing Kaizen to reduce number of people working online. You see, well, the union work in this line, they used to have 10, and now they have 7 people working here, and the union helped to do this? Yes, they did. Okay, so what kind of leadership you want? We had this morning, John talking about that. This is fundamental. How are we going to do this? This is not very simple. This is not very simple. We've been trying. And again, it starts with us. And this is hard for us that are trying to manage this, helping the companies to manage this transformation. This is very hard. This is not simple to do. And what we have to have in mind is we are having a different structure. When John talked about authority, we used to have the pyramid this way. So what we are thinking in terms of a vision is that what we want, we have to align all the value-adding process that leads towards the customer and the supporting processes in such a way that this chain of what used to be command and control now is a help chain. So different levels, different layers here are not related to layers of authority. There are different layers of responsibility and support, especially support responsibility. So this is a help chain. And this guy here, the CEO, is the guy supporting everybody, helping everybody, giving the direction and helping everybody. Giving the direction and helping everybody. So this becomes a helping chain, not a command, not a control chain. So that's when John was talking about authority. There are clear responsibilities here, and responsibilities in helping different levels of the organization. So that's a major change in the mindset of people. People are not used to do this, to think about the organization in such a way. Coaching is going to be an essential practice. How we are going to learn how to become coaches. Toyota, John mentioned, he had a coach at NUMI. But in our organizations, we don't have any coaches. Nobody has this experience. Toyota has accumulated 60 years of experience, almost 100 years, more than 100 years of experience, depending on how you look at it. How about our organizations? We say, well, everybody should be a coach. how they're going to do it. So this is a fundamental issue for the company. So you can learn to be a lean leader. You can learn how to ask questions. It's not easy. You should learn how to listen. Listen, actively listening. It's hard, it's not easy. And how to go to the Gemba, not becoming, not destroying what's been done, but being helpful, being supportive. What kind of skills you need, just going to the Gemba is not enough. It's good, but it's not enough. Maybe sometimes it's not good. It may even destroy. And how are we going to make people think? How are we going to change this environment so everybody's thinking? And how are we going to make everybody becoming a problem solver? It's very hard to do that. You know, in many organizations, first of all, they hide problems. When the problem appears, we have in Portuguese, I don't know if here you have the same description, we call it people dealing with hot potatoes. Do you know what a hot potato? Okay, hot potato is a problem happens and it becomes a hot potato. So what do you do with the hot potato? You throw it to somebody else. And then he catches the hot potato. It's hot. You throw it to somebody else. You solve the problem by throwing the hot potato to somebody else. So this is the most organizations are like this. It's very hard to change the attitude of people taking the initiative. Oh, this is my problem and I'm going to solve it. This initiative is very hard to change for companies that have these hiding problems. And if the problems appear for some reason, try to hide it. If there is no way to hide it because it's obvious, throw it to somebody else. So solve your problem by throwing it, the hot potato, to somebody else. So this kind of those things are cultural things that are deep embedded in a company. How we're going to change that is not simple. It's very hard. Most of the times we see culture here as something that is visible. Culture is here, is invisible. It's very common to see, well, our culture in the company, our values, we are this. We are a human resources focused company. And then you see the reality has nothing to do with this. So saying, I emphasize, I value improvement. Well, this is a continuous improvement company. And then you go everywhere and ask, when was the last time something was changed here? And I say, change? When? I think the board there, the paper that's saying continuous improvement has been changed. It changed from continuous improvement to permanent improvement. Because the continuous improvement team had a very long weekend discussion in a nice hotel, and they changed continuous for permanent. Because, you know, it's not only continuous, it's permanent. So that's the only time something was changed, was the board that talked about continuous improvement. So that's, we can't say values is the things that companies talk about, they write. But the things that they believe and they actually do are things that are very deep in an organization. Hard to see, hard to change. It takes time. It takes a lot of time to change this. What kind of culture do you want? Do you want a company that hides problems or exposes problems? What kind of culture do you want? Do you want a company focusing on the next term to make the numbers for Wall Street, or you make a company looking at the future, looking at long term? Do you want a company that squeezes the suppliers, or see the suppliers as partners in the long term? What do you want? What kind of company? You want a company that believes in people, or do you want a company that doesn't trust their people? What kind of company you want? Are you a company that likes to firefight all the time and promotes the best guys that are great firefighting? Or you want a company that really uses the scientific method, that eventually might go a little slower, but will go faster in the end? So what we want is to do this. I'm sure if you haven't started yet your lean journey, you're going to get here. So what we want is to be able to continue to improve this performance level. Maybe not the great leap that you had in the first year. There's a lot of hanging fruits around that are easy to catch. As you move, it's going to be a little harder. So what needs to be done in order to make this sustainable over time? How can we make sure that this journey is smooth and we're going to continue all the time? I think you had the answer in this conference. It's right here. So the topic is here, sustainable, and the answer or the way to think about it is here. Basically, if we consider those 5 issues in the very beginning of a lean transformation, and if you see the connection between them, it's very likely that you're going to have much more chances of becoming successful over time. So if you do this, I think you, and I just mentioned some of the tools that are important for each of those questions around this. We like to think about tools. Okay, that's one way to think about it. But that's the way we can create this garden, this beautiful garden. But again, be concerned. If you have a CEO, like the CEO of the company that I talked to you about, coming to this garden with a Mahindra tractor, we're going to have a tractor presentation following this. If there are many good uses for Mahindra tractors, great uses, but please don't use a Mahindra tractor here. So we want to create this beautiful garden. But in order to maintain this beautiful garden, we need somebody to do this every day. So if you don't have this, this is very live. If you don't do it every day, there is no future, there is no success, there is no sustainability. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Okay, thank you, Jose, for building on the theme so beautifully with the garden. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Please, please. Sorry.
I try to gain some time.
Yeah.
Hello.
So we don't.
Yeah.
We leave on.
Just a very small question I would like to ask you is,
if it's a small question, should I have a small answer
yes,
also?
I think you can answer it very small. Yeah. How important is discipline playing a role in the transformation?
Depends on what you mean by discipline.
As a culture in the organization.
I think Hitler was probably a very disciplined person.
How does discipline play a role in lean transformation? I think
it's very important, but it's as a collective way. As a collective way, yes. As we all understand that it cannot be imposed. It has to be understood as an element of the way we work together. If we want to work together better, if you want to improve, if we want to continuously improve our performance, we need to have some agreement on how we're going to work. And so this agreement on how we're going to work most of the times requires some discipline. Some companies, some IT companies think, well, it has to be very indisciplined. You need to work odd hours. Maybe that's one way to work. But you need an agreement on this. Most of the times, companies are not very well disciplined. For example, 5S. They start with 5S, and 5S doesn't sustain because it requires some discipline. Standardized work. They do standardized work one time, and they never go back to see what happened. So discipline to maintaining things is fundamental. If you don't maintain, if you don't guarantee the stability of things, it's very hard. So discipline not as something imposed, but something part of the system that we all agree it should be done in order to make us better.
Jeffrey Liker talks about servant leadership at Toyota. Can you tell us more about what is servant leadership?
I have no idea. Never worked for Toyota. I have no idea. Maybe John can talk about it. Sorry.
Or we'll call Jeffrey Liker next year and then he can answer.
If it's in a book, please read the book. I don't. I will try to read it. Yeah.
Okay, friends.
Good.
Thanks, Jose,
Thank
for beautifully building on the theme. It was excellent. Thank you.